The first encounter, the throne chamber of the alien empire, was a place where silence felt heavy, almost alive. Tall black pillars stretched into the shadows, their surfaces covered with strange glowing lines that pulsed like veins. The air was cold, sharp, carrying the faint metallic smell of alien machinery. Hundreds of courtiers stood in the vast hall, their eyes fixed on the lone human who dared to stand before their queen. He was not dressed like a soldier. No armor, no weapons. Only a simple dark suit, plain compared to the bright robes of alien nobles. Yet he stood straight, unshaken, even when every eye in the chamber judged him as weak, out of place, and doomed. At the far end of the hall, upon a throne carved from black stone, sat the alien queen. She was taller than any human, her body graceful but terrifying, wrapped in shining armor that looked both alive and metallic. Her face was sharp, her eyes glowing like molten gold, her presence commanding fear. Every movement she made was measured, slow, deliberate. When she shifted, the entire court seemed to hold its breath. It was said she had ruled for centuries. Her voice could decide wars. Her hand could crush entire fleets. To speak to her was like speaking to the galaxy itself. And yet, this one human looked at her. He did not bow as deeply as the others. He did not tremble. He only raised his eyes and met hers. For a moment, she was still. Her lips curved ever so slightly, not in a smile, but in something sharper. A test. Her voice rang through the chamber, soft but filled with power. "Human," she said, the word rolling like thunder. "Why do you watch me so boldly? Do you not fear what I am?" The courtiers whispered among themselves. They expected him to falter, to drop to his knees, to beg for mercy. But he did not. His voice was calm, clear, steady. "I watch you," he said, "because you shine." The chamber fell silent. The words echoed, bouncing off the black stone walls like a forbidden spell. The alien nobles stared in disbelief. No one had ever spoken to the queen in such a way. To compare her to light, to beauty, instead of power, it was unthinkable. Her golden eyes narrowed. Her hand, resting on the armrest of the throne, twitched, ever so slightly. She leaned forward, studying him as though he were a puzzle she could not solve. "Shine?" she repeated, the word tasting strange in her mouth. "You speak as though I am a star. Do you think flattery will save you?" He did not flinch. "I do not flatter. I only tell the truth." Her breath caught. For the first time in many years, she felt her heart beat faster. Strange warmth touched her cheeks, hidden beneath her cold mask of control. She shifted slightly, turning her face just enough to hide it, but the courtiers closest to her throne noticed. A faint change in color. A blush. The alien queen, the unshaken ruler of empires, had blushed. A murmur spread through the court like wildfire. Some laughed quietly, others hissed in anger, and many simply stared in disbelief. The human had said only a few words, that they had done what no warrior or rival had ever achieved. He had unsettled her. She rose from her throne, her tall frame casting a long shadow that reached all the way to where the human stood. The hall trembled as she moved. Every step echoed, and the courtiers drew back in fear. The human did not move. He did not step away. His eyes remained locked on hers. When she finally stood before him, towering above, she looked down with a mixture of anger and curiosity. "You are bold, human," she said softly, but her voice carried like steel. "Too bold. Words like that could cost you your life." He met her gaze without fear. "Then let them, but I meant them." Her chest rose and fell slowly, as if she was holding back something. Her claws flexed, her jaw tightened, but her eyes betrayed her. Something flickered in them. Not rage, not disgust. Something else. The courtiers waited for her to strike him down, to silence this fragile creature who dared speak so freely. But the strike never came. Instead, she turned away sharply, her cloak flowing behind her, and walked back to her throne. "Leave us," she commanded the court. Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled as she gripped the throne again. By one, the nobles left the chamber, whispering feverishly. Only the human remained. He did not know it yet, but his simple words had carved cracks into the unbreakable armor of the queen. Words that could shift the fate of empires. Words that, for the first time in her endless reign, made her feel something human. And in the silence that followed, her blush still lingered, hidden in the shadows of the throne. The challenge of silence. The next morning, the human awoke inside the guest chamber of the alien palace. The room was not built for his kind. The walls bent at strange angles, the ceiling curved like the inside of a shell, and faint blue lights pulsed through the floor as though the palace itself was alive. He had been given a bed, though it was far too long and far too narrow. The sheets carried the faint smell of iron and something sweet, like flowers that had died long ago. He sat up, listening. The silence was heavy. It was not the silence of peace, but of waiting, like the palace was holding its breath. Outside his door, alien guards stood still. Their armor glowed faintly, and their weapons hummed. They did not speak. They only watched. He knew he was not a guest. He was a prisoner. The memory of last night returned sharply. The queen's golden eyes, her voice like thunder, and most of all the way she had turned away, her face faintly touched by a blush. He could still see it in his mind. He could still feel the weight of her gaze on him. The door slid open without sound. An alien servant entered, small, pale, with dark eyes that never looked directly at him. The servant bowed quickly and placed a tray on the table. Strange food rested on silver plates. Black fruit that dripped with thick liquid, meat that glowed faintly blue, bread that was hard as stone. The servant whispered one thing before leaving. "She will call for you." And then the door shut again. Hours passed. He did not eat. He only waited. Finally, when the lights on the floor shifted from blue to white, the guards entered. They said nothing, only gestured for him to follow. He walked between them, his steps echoing softly through the vast halls. Alien carvings stared down at him from the walls, faces twisted, eyes sharp, mouths open in silent screams. The air smelled of smoke and metal. They brought him back to the throne chamber. This time it was empty. No courtiers, no whispers, no audience. Only the throne at the far end. And her, the alien queen, sat alone. Her armor shimmered in the dim light, her long cloak resting like shadow on the floor. Her eyes followed him as he entered. He bowed, but not deeply. She studied him for a long moment, her face unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice quieter than before, but sharper, like a blade drawn halfway from its sheath. "You said I shine." "Yes," he replied. Her eyes narrowed. "Do you know what you have done? In front of my court, in front of my empire, you spoke words no one dares speak, words that weakened me." He held her gaze. "Or words that made you stronger." Her claws tapped against the armrest of her throne. A faint metallic sound, steady, like a clock ticking. "Strong? Do you think calling me beautiful makes me strong?" "I think," he said calmly, "that it makes you something more than a weapon, more than a ruler. It makes you real." For a moment, she said nothing. The silence grew heavy again, pressing against the walls. Finally, she rose. Slowly, her tall figure descended from the throne. Her steps echoed through the chamber. She walked until she stood only a few feet from him. Her golden eyes burned into his. "You are a strange creature. Human," she whispered. "Others bow, others tremble, but you look at me as though I am not a queen at all." He answered softly, Because I see more than a queen. Her breath caught again. A small, sharp flicker of warmth spread across her cheeks. Her lips pressed together, hiding it, but she could not stop it completely. Anger flashed in her eyes. Not at him, but at herself, at her weakness. She turned away sharply, her cloak sweeping behind her. "You are dangerous," she said, her voice louder now, almost trembling. "Not with weapons, not with armies, but with words. Words that slip past my armor." She walked back to her throne, sitting heavily. "So I will test you. If your words are true, if you truly see me, then survive what I place before you. If you fail, you die." The human stood still, unflinching. "Then test me." Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time, her lips curved into a true smile. Not cold, not cruel, but sharp, almost playful. "So be it," she whispered. "We shall see if the human's tongue is stronger than the queen's throne." The chamber doors shut with a heavy echo. The silence returned. But in her eyes, hidden beneath golden fire, the blush still lingered, and the test had only begun. The test the next dawn came with no sound. The human did not wake to sunlight, for the palace had no windows. He woke instead to the hum of unseen machinery, the walls glowing with pale blue veins. He had barely slept. His mind replayed every second of his meeting with the alien queen, the steel in her voice, the sudden blush she had tried to hide. But now came the test. The guards appeared again. They were taller than him, armored in plates that shimmered like oil, and they never spoke. They only gestured, and he followed. They led him through the twisting halls of the palace. The air grew colder. The smell of smoke and iron deepened until it clung to his throat. At last they entered a vast chamber, unlike any he had seen before. The floor was a circle of black stone, carved with glowing red lines. Strange markings pulsed faintly, like veins of fire. Above, the ceiling arched high, lost in shadow. Around the chamber, alien nobles watched in silence, their eyes gleaming with hunger, with doubt. With amusement at the far end, the queen stood. Her armor caught the light, her cloak trailing behind her like night itself. Her golden eyes locked on him, unreadable but fierce. "This," she said, her voice echoing, "is the circle of silence. It is where truth is tested. No weapon, no shield, only presence." The human stepped onto the circle. The red lines flared, brighter beneath his feet. A hum filled the air, vibrating against his bones. "What must I do?" he asked. The queen's lips curved faintly. "Survive." From the shadows, a shape emerged. It was not alive, at least not fully. A construct of the queen's people, a trial beast. Its body was thin and long, like bones stretched too far. Its skin was pale, almost translucent. Its eyes glowed red, and its mouth opened too wide, filled with rows of sharp, clicking teeth. The nobles leaned forward, whispering. They wanted to see the human fall. The creature hissed. It circled him slowly, its limbs moving at odd angles, joints bending the wrong way. Every sound it made scraped against the silence, too sharp, too sudden. The human's heart pounded, but he stood tall. He did not run. He did not beg. He only watched. The beast lunged. It struck with claws that shimmered faintly, designed to tear through flesh. The human moved just enough, the claw scraping past him, sparks flying as it hit the stone. He stumbled but did not fall. The nobles hissed with laughter. Again the beast attacked. And again he slipped aside, just barely. His breath grew ragged, his muscles trembled. But he refused to bow. At last the beast stopped. It crouched low, its glowing eyes fixed on him, waiting for weakness. The queen's voice cut through the key. "Silence. Speak, human. Why do you not tremble? Why do you not break? You are fragile. You should be dead." He raised his eyes to hers. His voice was steady, even as sweat ran down his face. "Because you are watching." The chamber froze. The beast growled low, uncertain. The nobles murmured in shock. And the queen herself, her golden eyes widened, just for a heartbeat. Her hand tightened on the arm of her throne. A faint warmth touched her cheeks again. A blush. Hidden beneath her command, the human stepped forward, closer to the center of the circle, closer to the beast. He did not flinch. He did not lower his gaze. He looked only at her. "I survive," he said, his voice strong, "because you expect me to. And I will not fail while your eyes are on me." The beast snarled, but it did not move. The circle pulsed, with light brighter and brighter, until the chamber walls shook. The queen lifted her hand. The beast froze and melted back into the shadows, vanishing like smoke. The nobles gasped. None had expected this. The queen rose from her throne, her golden eyes burning. For a long time, she said nothing. Then, her lips curved not with cruelty, but with something sharper, something softer. "You pass," she whispered. The chamber doors slammed shut behind him, and in that silence, heavier than before, the alien queen turned her face away. But no one failed to notice. The blush remained. The court's whisper, the chamber emptied slowly, but whispers clung to the stone walls like smoke. The human was escorted out, but he could still feel their eyes burning into his back. Every noble, every watcher in that circle had seen what happened. They had seen him survive. Worse, they had seen the queen falter. The guards led him down another corridor. The air was warmer here, scented faintly with oils and burning metal. He was placed inside a smaller chamber, not a cell but not freedom either. The door sealed behind him with a low hiss. He sat on the edge of a hard bed, hands trembling only now when no one could see. His heart still raced from the trial, and yet his mind was not on the beast. It was on her. The queen, the way her golden eyes had widened when he spoke, the way her voice had softened, just for a second, the way her face, proud and cold, had betrayed the faintest blush. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "What did I just do?" he whispered to himself. Far above him, in the highest halls of the palace, the queen stood before her court. The nobles circled her throne, speaking all at once. Their voices hissed and clashed like blades. He should not have survived. The trial beast should have torn him apart. This is weakness. This is danger. One stepped forward, draped in silver robes. His eyes were hard, his voice sharp. "My queen, the human is no ally. He is a disruption. If he can bend your will with words, what will he do with time? He must be removed." The queen said nothing. She sat tall, her armor gleaming under the firelight. But her silence was not enough to calm them. Another noble sneered. "Already the court speaks of your blush. They whisper in the halls. They say you are moved by him, a human." The word dripped like poison. The queen's fingers curled around the arm of her throne. Her voice, when it came, was low and cold. "Enough." "The?" Hall fell silent. Her eyes, golden and sharp, swept over them. "You question me. You forget who commands. He is under my watch, my trial, my judgment. If any of you move against him without my word," her gaze narrowed, "you will face." "Hmm?" The nobles bowed, but their whispers did not stop. They never stopped. That night, the human could not sleep. The chamber lights dimmed, leaving only shadows. He thought of the beast, the trial, the noble's eyes. But above all, he thought of her. He remembered the moment she turned away, the faint flush on her face. He wondered if she was thinking of him too. The queen stood alone in her private chamber. The walls here were smooth, glowing faintly with golden lines. She had removed her crown, her armor, standing only in a long dark robe. Her reflection stared back at her from a polished metal plate. She touched her own cheek, where the warmth had burned earlier. The court's whispers echoed in her mind, cruel and mocking. She hated weakness. She had sworn never to show it. And yet when his eyes had locked on hers, she had felt something break, something she could not name. Her hand lowered. Her golden eyes hardened again. "This cannot continue," she whispered. But the words rang hollow. The next morning, the human was led back into the great hall. This time, the queen did not wait for him on the throne. She stood near the windowless wall, gazing at the glowing veins that pulsed faintly like a living heart. When he entered, she turned slowly. Their eyes met again. For a moment, silence ruled the hall. Then she spoke. "The court whispers against you. They call you dangerous. They call you a mistake." He stepped closer, his voice calm. "And you? What do you call me?" The queen's breath caught, so faint he almost did not hear it. Her golden eyes flickered, not with anger, but with something deeper. She turned away before she could answer. "Be careful, human," she said softly. "Here, whispers kill faster than blades." But as she walked past him, her cloak brushing against his arm, he saw it again. The faintest warmth in her cheeks. The alien queen was blushing. The threat in the shadows. Corridors of the palace grew colder as the human was escorted back to his chamber. The guards did not speak. Their steps echoed against the stone, heavy and sharp, like blades tapping on a hollow drum. He could feel the change in the air, something darker, heavier than before. The queen's words still echoed in his mind. Whispers kill faster than blades. He sat in silence for hours, staring at the door. His instincts told him she was right. He had seen it in the noble's eyes, the hunger, the rage. They were not finished with him. That night, long after, the torches dimmed, the nobles gathered in a hidden chamber beneath the palace. The walls were black stone, carved with old symbols of power. A single blue flame burned in the center, casting twisted shadows on their faces. The noble in silver robes spoke first. His voice was cold, each word sharp as glass. "The queen is losing herself. You saw it. She defends him." "She," he spat the word, blushed at him. The others murmured in disgust. One slammed a clawed hand against the stone table. "She forgets her blood, forgetting her strength. A queen cannot fall to weakness." Another leaned forward, his voice low and dangerous. "If the human has captured her eyes, then he must be removed, quietly, permanently." The silver-robed noble nodded. "Yes, but not by blade. If he dies by our hands, the queen will see. No, it must be unseen. He must vanish, as if fate itself took him." They raised their hands together, the blue flame flickering as their oath sealed in the dark. The human awoke to silence. Too much silence. His chamber was still, but something was wrong. The torches burned low, though no one had entered to replace them. The air smelled faintly of iron, sharp and metallic. He sat up slowly, eyes scanning the corners. Then he heard its soft scraping, like claws against stone. He froze. The sound circled the chamber, slow, deliberate. A shadow shifted across the far wall, long and thin, though nothing stood there. He reached for the iron shard he had hidden beneath the bed, a makeshift weapon from the trial arena. His hand shook, but he held it tight. The scraping stopped, then came the whisper. Not from the door, not from the wall, from inside the room. "Leave her. Leave this place. Or bleed." He spun, but there was nothing. Only shadows. Only silence. His chest tightened. They were trying to break him, not with blades, but with fear. He sat back on the bed, refusing to let go of the shard. His voice, though quiet, was steady. Have to do better. Above him, in her private chamber, the queen could not sleep either. She stood near the glowing veins of the wall, hands clasped behind her back. She had heard the whispers in the court halls. The words carried faster than wind. She knew they plotted. She knew they would not stop. But what burned her more was her own heart. Every time she thought of him, every time she remembered his eyes on hers, her chest ached with something she did not want to name. She touched her cheek again, hating the warmth that returned. A queen should not feel this. A queen should not falter. And yet, she whispered into the dark, "Why can't I look away?" The next morning, the human was summoned again. The guards looked uneasy, but said nothing. When he stepped into the great hall, the queen was already waiting, her golden eyes unreadable. She studied him carefully, as though searching for cracks. "You look tired," she said. He gave a small smile. "Your nobles are creative. They tried fear this time." Her eyes narrowed. What did they do? Whispers in the dark. Shadows moving where they shouldn't. Threats. He paused. "But I'm still here." For the first time she looked shaken. She stepped closer, her cloak brushing the floor. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They will not stop. You are in danger every hour you remain here." He met her gaze, steady and calm. "And yet, I think you don't want me to leave." Her eyes widened. For a heartbeat, the mask of the queen fell away, leaving only the woman beneath, the one who could blush. She turned sharply, hiding her face. "Be silent. Human, before you say too much." But as she walked away, he saw it again. Her hands trembled, and the whispers of the court only grew louder about the queen's choice. The palace grew heavier each passing day. The human could feel it in every corner, every whisper, every glance from the nobles. They no longer hid their contempt. Some glared openly, others smiled too sweetly. But all of them carried the same hunger, the need to see him gone. And yet the queen did nothing. Not openly. Not yet. One evening he was summoned again to her chamber. The guards seemed tense, almost nervous, as though they did not want to be the ones escorting him. When the doors closed behind him, he found her standing near the great window. That looked out over the endless black desert. The queen did not turn at first. Her cloak shimmered faintly in the light of the moon. Her hands clasped tightly behind her back. "They want me to kill you," she said, her voice low, as if confessing to the night itself. The human froze, but did not speak. "They came to me. This morning, the High Council." Her tone was sharp now, filled with venom. "They told me you are a threat, that you twist my mind, that you make me weak." Finally, she turned, her golden eyes glowing faintly. "And they are right. I am weak. For the first time, I hesitate. For the first time, I think not of empire, but of you." The human stepped closer, his heart racing. Is that weakness? Or is it strength? Her lips parted, but no words came. For a moment, the queen who ruled with fire and steel seemed almost fragile dot, but their moments shattered with the sound of steel. The doors burst open. A squad of armored nobles stormed inside, weapons raised. Their voices hissed with rage. "End it now, Majesty, or we will end it for you." The queen's eyes narrowed, her body shifting into the stance of a predator. Power radiated from her like a storm held on a chain. But even she looked uncertain. She could not fight them all, not without tearing her throne apart. The human stepped forward before she could. His voice cut through the air, sharp and calm. "You're afraid. Not of her. Not of me. You're afraid of what happens if she chooses differently than you expect." The nobles sneered, their weapons shaking with fury. "She is our queen. She belongs to us. not to some wandering prey creature. The human's grip tightened on the iron shard hidden beneath his cloak. He had no chance against armored nobles, but his words could wound deeper than blades. She doesn't belong to anyone, not even you. The room went still. Every eye turned to the queen. For a heartbeat, the world seemed frozen. Then, slowly, she raised her hand. Her voice was calm, but heavy with finality. Enough. The power in that single word struck the hall like thunder. The nobles staggered back, their rage colliding with fear. The queen stepped closer to them, her eyes blazing with fire. You forget who I am. You forget the blood that burns in my veins. You think I bend because I look at him? Her voice rose, sharp as steel. No, I bend for no one. Not you, not the council, not the stars themselves. She stopped beside the human, her cloak brushing his arm. And then she did what none of them expected. She placed her hand on his shoulder. Gasps filled the hall. The nobles recoiled as though struck. This human is mine, she declared, her voice like fire through the stone. If you raise a hand against him, you raise it against me, and I will burn you where you stand. Silence. The nobles lowered their weapons, fear finally piercing their pride. One by one, they backed away, retreating into the shadows like defeated wolves. When the hall was empty again, the queen let her hand fall away. She turned, her expression unreadable. You see what I have done? She whispered. I have chosen you. And now the whole empire will rise against me. The human held her gaze. Then let them rise. For the first time, she smiled not. A cruel smile, not a cold one, but something real. Something human, careful human, she said softly. You make me believe I can defy the stars. The empire's judgment, the storm came fast. News of the queen's choice spread across the new empire like fire through dry grass. Some whispered in fear, others shouted in rage. Entire courts of nobles called her a traitor to her bloodline. Priests cried out that she had broken the sacred order. Armies stirred. The empire no longer moved as one it fractured. And at the heart of it all stood the human. He could feel the weight of it every moment. Servants avoided his eyes. Guards gripped their weapons tighter when he passed. The palace, once grand and endless, now felt like a cage. The queen, however, walked with her head high. Her steps carried defiance, her golden eyes unshaken. But he could see the cost in her quiet moments when she thought no one was watching. Night, as the black desert winds howled against the windows, she spoke. They will not forgive me, she whispered. Not for you, not for this. They will come. And when they do, they will not stop until one of us is ash. The human met her gaze. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. Then let's make sure it's not us. For a moment, her lips curved the faintest trace of a smile. Attack came sooner than either of them expected. The palace trembled under the sound of war drums. Armored ranks of nobles, their banners like shadows of blood, surrounded the walls. The sky itself burned red with torches. From every corner of the empire, they had gathered not as an army of the queen, but as executioners. Inside the throne hall, the queen stood at the center, her long cloak trailing across the black marble floor. The human stood at her side, the weight of his iron shard hidden in his hand. The nobles entered in silence. No speeches, no threats. Only the sharp scrape of boots and the hunger in their eyes dotted last. One voice rose. A noble, taller than the rest, his armor streaked with crimson. You have broken the empire, he said. You have tainted the throne. With prey blood, we demand you step down. Now. The queen's gaze was fire. You demand? Her voice cracked like thunder. You demand? The hall shuddered as her power flared, heat rippling through the air. But the nobles did not yield. They stepped forward, Blades drawn. The human felt the air tighten. His breath caught. He could hear it, his heartbeat, the scrape of steel, the whisper of the desert winds outside Dot, and then he spoke. Stop. His voice rang out, sharp, cutting, through the storm of hatred. For a moment, they actually did. All eyes turned toward him. You call me prey. You call me weakness. But I am not the one hiding behind armies. I am not the one afraid of change. The nobles snarled, their blades flashing, but the queen raised her hand. She wanted to hear more. Got. The human's voice grew stronger. You think your empire is eternal, but empires fall. Thrones crumble. And when they do, it is not the strongest who survive. It is the ones who dare to change. He turned to the queen. Then, his words slowed, softer, but heavy with truth. And you dared. The queen's eyes locked on his. In that instant, the fire inside her erupted. Not the fire of rage, but of courage.